Howdy. SpongeBob has met many evildoers over the last 20 plus years, and I'd like to rank the most exciting and intriguing of these fiends, as well as the most eye-rolling, irritating reprobates this side of the ocean. So this is every single SpongeBob villain ranked from worst to best. Let's start with the abysmal villains. Dirty Bubble. Jeepers, this guy's a bore. I think there's only one plus to Dirty Bubble. His voice actors are always spectacular. That's it.
Did someone say evil?
But aside from that, Dirty Bubble bores the crap out of me whenever he's on screen. His character begins and ends with the single novelty that he's a villain who's also a bubble. You know, in case his name didn't give it away. He's so dull that even Patrick can accidentally defeat him as Patrick Man with an ice cream cone. What are his villainous goals? Well, according to the Villains Wiki, all it says is
his goals are to trap people inside of himself, especially Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy.
That's it. I guess he just wants to inconvenience people. He's also the main villain in SpongeBob the Yellow Avenger, but I'm not going to waste another single moment of your time talking about this boring bubble. Next villain, Burger Beard. The second SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water, introduced us to El Beardo Generico. Now, be honest, do you remember anything about this guy? All I remember about him is wishing he was Patchy the Pirate from the show.
Patty, say hello to the nice people.
Help! I'm being held here against my will.
I suppose Beardy at least has clear goals. He runs a food truck and wants to steal the Krabby Patty formula in order to become the richest food truck owner. So basically, he's a live-action Plankton. Even when our CG Bikini Bottom heroes face him at the movie's end, he feels like an awkward villain choice. He just didn't visually mix well with Spongy and the crew, even when they were in CG. I feel like if we had Patchy instead, that would have leaned better into that awkwardness and silliness. But I guess they couldn't use Patchy because it wouldn't be in character. He'd never hurt SpongeBob and he'd never steal the Krabby Patty formula. He's a good guy and that'd be out of character for him. Next up we have Bubble Bass. I know some people like this guy, but I'm sorry, I just can't stand it. Most episodes with him seem to base almost 100% of his jokes around him being heavyset, not particularly attractive and having quote-unquote no life. And this cliche of the overweight guy in his parents' basement got old in the 2000s. And frankly, I've never particularly liked this cliche to begin with because, as you might have heard me mention before, I'm on the spectrum. And many people on the spectrum struggle with employment, enjoy gaming inside their houses, and struggle with socializing. And given over 70 million adults in the US are obese, my point is you certainly don't have to be living in a basement to be overweight. Jeebus, this cliche sucks. I just can't find it or Bubble Bass a funny joke. I have been Bubble Bass many times in my life. I know many people in my community who have. And around the world, housing is less affordable than in all of human history. So living in the basement being a sign of someone with no life is now so outdated it's just plain toxic. And worse yet, rather than humanizing this cliche by giving Bubble Bass redeeming qualities, they just keep hammering home in every single episode how useless and pathetic he is. The less Bubble Bass per episode, the happier I am. A fun fact though, his voice actor also voices Klaus in American Dad, a character I like considerably better. And now, onto the lousy villains. King Poseidon. This guy may be the ruler of Atlantic City, but that sure doesn't make him interesting. I mostly liked the movie Sponge on the Run, mostly. But you can sum up the villain's personality in one word: vain. He's narcissistic and cares deeply about his physical appearance, so he steals Gary to get a nice skin gloss. Apart from that, he's just your typical cliche pampered but ruthless monarchy. Both King Poseidon and King Neptune I find dull as a rock. Funnily though, Neptune's daughter Mindy took all the character for herself. I think the most redeeming moment for Poseidon was when he stopped all the obsessing about his appearance, reveals his baldness, and hey, why are all these kings bald anyway? And next up we have Karen 2.0. Karen 2 had one goal, which was to replace the original Karen as Plankton's husband. As much as I really like Karen, there wasn't much to be said about Karen 2.0. According to Plankton, her physical design is sleek and space-aged.
She's got triple the processing, all the latest software, and a sleek space-age design.
As I've mentioned in previous videos, my favorite part about this episode was seeing Karen working at the Krusty Krab. She is a laugh riot in this job, and I wish we'd seen her in this role again. But it's an episode that also makes her feel silly for coming back to Plankton since, well, Plankton shut her down, which is kind of messed up when you think about it. See, this is the problem. I ended up trailing off talking about Karen 1 instead because she's so much more interesting than Karen 2.0. I do like her blue color scheme and overall design. Her voice actor is also the voice of Madame Cassandra, who I'll discuss later, but I like that both these characters have a slight bite of sultriness, but we're still primed to see Karen 2 as the villain with her red monitor light. Overall, I think Karen 2.0 is a perfectly serviceable villain. Serviceable. The next villain is the Frogfish, aka the Ice Cream Lady. The Ice Cream Lady is responsible for one of the most memorable and definitely most gruesome scenes in the first SpongeBob movie. Even now remembering her, I mostly remember this creepy fleshy monstrosity in a valley full of bones. I remember in our collab, Doug commented on how weirdly gruesome this scene was too. Not much else to say other than Frogfish is a very intimidating villain. We've only seen her once in the series, and she seems dead set on eating SpongeBob and Patrick. Technically though, if we follow Mr. Hellberg's time frame of the series, we don't see her till the series eventually ends, as he considers the SpongeBob first movie the final episode of the show. So hopefully we don't see her in the timeline for a long time yet. Our next villain is a game villain, the Prawn. Prawn was the ex-nemesis of Mermaid Man, and as far as I know, an exclusive to the SpongeBob video games. And his evil deed is honestly pretty funny. Apparently, he put a red sock in with all of Mermaid Man's clothes, causing his clothes to turn pink. Pink! The most dastardly deed of all. Ooh ha ha ha. I like his slightly eloquent voice delivery. He's clearly the same voice actor as that news reporter fish.
Personally, I thought pink made you very pretty. Really? Sure, pretty stupid.
In the sequel, The Cosmic Shake, he plays Admiral Prawn. In Pirate Goo Lagoon, Diar, he shoots pies at SpongeBob. Not much else to say about Prawn. He didn't leave a strong impression upon me personally, but he's okay. Next up, we have the vanilla villains. Let's start with Cuddle Hugs. You remember this big fella? He's that unusual imaginary friend SpongeBob saw whenever he ate that poison Krabby Patty in that notorious episode. And call me crazy, but I don't hate this villain. He's just so different and bizarre and completely unpredictable. One moment he's SpongeBob's friend, the next moment he's possibly more than that with SpongeBob. The next moment, he's having this creepy, very physical party in the Krusty Krab. This is like the closest thing I've ever seen to a G-rated orgy. The next moment, he's turned on a dime and suddenly he's eating everyone. If you think of a villain like, say, Plankton, you can probably guess how he's gonna act, most of the time. But for better or for worse, I can't think of a single animated character Cuddle Hugs reminds me of. And when you look at the guy, you can clearly tell there's something sinister going on, but in an unusually instinctive way. When I see him, he kind of provokes that childhood stranger danger sense. On a side note, I love the way the Villains Wiki states his goals.
His goal is to manipulate SpongeBob so that all the residents of the Krusty Krab eat the rotten patty, so they can see him and he can eat them. Succeeded.
Yeah, that he did. We gotta at least mention the Alaskan bullworm. This big guy is what you might call a force of nature villain. No strong motives or personality, just a big scary monster to be avoided, and for Sandy to beat the crap out of. And next up we have Lord Poltergeist. Poltergeist is a very strange villain. I wouldn't call him dull, but he's like the toned down version of the Flying Dutchman. His personality is basically spooky. Probably the most interesting part about him is his visual design. He's one of the most uncanny, out of place pieces of animation I've seen in the show. He's got those gangly hands and that ghoulish face. Plus, his teeth make me want to see my dentist. His most notable trait is probably his godlike power. He basically flips reality all around SpongeBob in ghoul fools and traps him in a strange, twisted dimension inside the Krusty Krab. It's a very bizarre, unhinged episode. Next up is Dennis.
You rang?
Oh, sorry man, I meant another Dennis. Fun fact, this bounty hunter was so forgettable to me, I completely forgot about him the last moment of this script. I never much cared for this guy in the SpongeBob movie. I guess he serves his purpose in being intimidating, but he's so devoid of personality. And in my opinion, there's simply not enough comedy with him to match the general tone of the movie. He feels like a character that should have some comedy to lighten him up, yet there's never really a funny moment with him. Mainly just him showing off how dangerous he is by beating people up. I feel like Dennis needed a little more of Victor in him. More on him later. A bit more over-the-top butch with some silly characteristics rather than just being the strong silent type. Anyway, next villain is the Moth. The Moth is more of a nuisance than a legitimate threat. I mean, he kicks Mermaid Man in the nose, but he mostly just seems to want to steal lights from Bikini Bottom because, you know, he's a moth and he likes lights. By far the most memorable part about him is his voice. In case you didn't know, he's voiced by the Jedi Master Mark Hamill. A shame we don't see more of him. I'm sure Luke Skywalker and the Joker would be delighted to be on SpongeBob anytime. But, you know, I suspect the show only needs so many comic book villains. Our next villain is Blackjack Squarepants. He's fresh out of prison for littering, and he's on his way to make SpongeBob's life hell. Everything about Blackjack's design is so hilariously over the top. You might recognize SpongeBob's cousin's voice from Bender in Futurama, and he's chewing on the scenery so much with Blackjack.
Did you come here to quiver like a jellyfish, or did you come to wrestle?
You just couldn't get a better hammy bully character. He's like Flatz on steroids while also being a SpongeBob family member. I even like the twist that he's actually pint-sized. We don't see much of Blackjack, but he is such a treat of a villain. The next villain is the Jellians. Do you remember the episode Planet of the Jellyfish? It's easily among the creepiest episodes in the series. Unlike most of the villains in the show, the Jellians have a very real sense of horror to them. Like, they could have legitimately destroyed Bikini Bottom and overrun it if they weren't stopped. They were defeated, but they were well on their way to replacing all inhabitants of Bikini Bottom. Their horror shows in their visual design too. It's far more otherworldly and feels out of place among the colourful, big-eyed characters of Bikini Bottom. Why are they so early in the ranking? Well, it's a personal thing. I think they stand out as too horrific, and I almost wish they were a bit more comical and fun. Not that there's anything wrong with a good horror, but in a SpongeBob episode, they just feel a bit too out of place for me. The next villain we have is Kevin, the leader of the Jelly Spotters, and arguably the 2000s version of a YouTube celebrity. Kevin doesn't really have much of a personality beyond being a stuck-up jerk, but I think that's all he really needs to be in the episode I'm Your Biggest Fanatic. Continually showing how friendly and unassuming SpongeBob is. And you know, Kevin's annoying enough that I enjoy seeing him continually zapped by jellyfish. Next up we have the SpongeBob villains that are okay. The Goob Father, aka Barry. The Villains Wiki didn't mention this guy, and I think that's a disservice to him. Technically, Goofy Goobers is the only real competition Krusty Krab has ever had, and the Goob Father Barry uses some devious tactics to take their competitor down, sending in Muscle to destroy the ice cream machines at the Krusty Krab. And he begins an all-out war against their restaurant, including using ice cream bombs. The guy is reserved and softly spoken, but also dangerous if threatened, and a Godfather parody that's been under our noses as a hidden villain for quite a while.
Do your stuff, boys!
Our next devious individual is Master Rudon. Oh, I like this guy. For all the flack this episode gets, I'm not only a fan of it, but I think Master Rudon works great as a timeshare salesman.
It's really quite simple. If you invest in a timeshare here on Condo Island,
it's the kind of joke that just comes out of nowhere. He's a great comedic villain, and it's super fun to see Sandy go all Kill Bill on him and just beat him up. To save SpongeBob from A timeshare pitch. Oh no, he'll never use it.
Thanks for saving me from buying a condo.
Next up, we have Puffy Fluffy. Puffy Fluffy may be the star of arguably the worst episode in the entire SpongeBob series, but that doesn't automatically make it a bad villain. Puffy's definitely another case of a force of nature villain, where it doesn't necessarily have much complexity and motivation, but it's still a dangerous threat to our heroes. Perhaps even more than the Jellians, Puffy Fluffy falls into the category of an uncanny, disturbing face. It just doesn't suit the show's feel, it's just too grim and dark and creepy looking. So yeah, I personally don't mind Puffy Fluffy as a villain. Our next villain is Man Ray. Man Ray on paper just doesn't have a distinct persona to me, but whenever he's on screen he just steals the scene. Probably my favorite of his scenes is where he's trying to be a nice person and give Patrick's wallet back, but Patrick's too stupid to actually take his wallet back.
Then take it.
It's not my wallet.
Oh, you dimple! Take back your wallet or I'll rip your arms off!
Wrong.
Man Ray's another case where his voice actor is spectacular. I mean, most SpongeBob characters are, but Man Ray in particular emanates his presence of a traditional classy British Bond villain.
Tickles, but it's worth.
I like the tiny detail of how his eyes change on his mask based on how he's feeling. He feels like a legitimate comic book supervillain. And if you want a taste of this guy, I recommend Patrick Meets Man Ray on the SpongeBob official YouTube page. Next villain is Flatz the Flounder.
I like to kick people's butts.
Flatz isn't a particularly complicated villain, but he's not meant to be. Flatz's sole purpose for his one episode is to be a bully and beat up SpongeBob. And steadily, the countdown begins before he does just that. And it's not till the end of the episode we realize that, wait a minute, SpongeBob is made of sponge. So Flatz can't actually hurt him. And Flatz is painted, so it's very cathartic when we finally see him fail to do anything to SpongeBob, apart from make a funny sound.
Flatz, are you okay?
Our next villain is Naked Krabs.
Good grief, he's naked!
Oh come on, this guy counts, right? He may be in an alternative reality, but he wowed us all. Naked Krabs works because his one appearance is such an absurd surprise. I always like when Krabs goes completely off the rails, and Naked Krabs is just the embodiment of that. Body naked.
I don't understand. Is there a gas leak in here?
Next villain we have is the animatronic Hieronymus Glove, the founder and creator of the infamous Glove World.
It's me, Hieronymus Glove.
SpongeBob and Patrick's favorite theme park in the whole sea. This guy's very much based on aping the Disneyland theme park cliches and much of the conspiracies behind the park. Like, who's really the man behind the curtain? He's basically meant to be the equivalent to Walt, but in the show, he doesn't do much more than chase down Spongy and Patrick. He seems to be trying to get revenge on them for dismantling his body, but in the end, much like the rumors about Walt, the real Hieronymus Glove is frozen in ice.
Splendid! Splendid!
And now for the good villains.
You can become whoever you want to be. Receive whatever you want to have. Just bubble your wish into the heavens.
Have you ever played the SpongeBob game, The Cosmic Shake? It's one of the new ones. Cassandra's the main villain of the game, and she's just a delight. Her plan is to overthrow King Neptune using cosmic jelly. I see. So she very transparently tries to trick SpongeBob and Patrick. And damn, I like the choice of voice actor here. Despite her having to say some of the most ridiculous cartoon lines ever.
I am now the queen of the ocean, and with the power of the cosmic jelly, I will reshape the seas according to my wishes.
She still carries a sense of majesty and mystery and strength. Very cool. You see, the whole way the Cosmic Shake starts is when she sells Neptune's wish-granting, bubble soap to Spongy and Patrick. This is apparently part of her elaborate plan so that SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally destroy reality with the bubble soap power. So we have to use SpongeBob and Patrick to collect cosmic jelly under Cassandra's instructions.
My once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for world domination. I mean saving the world.
As well as Cassandra having a great voice, I personally think she has a nice visual design too. It feels very fortune teller with a nice lavender theme. Also, fun fact, Cassandra actually has the same voice actor as Karen 2.0, but you'd never guess as the two of them sound completely different.
You didn't exactly design me with arms, you know.
Our next villain is a pretty famous one, DoodleBob. This guy may technically be two-dimensional, but ironically, he sure ain't two-dimensional in character. You might remember DoodleBob appearing in the episodes Frankendoodle and Doodle Dimension. SpongeBob accidentally makes him with a magic pencil, and little did Spongy know what he was unleashing upon the sea. What are his crimes?
Vandalism, harassment, assault, kidnapping, home invasion, destruction of property, attempted genocide, and false imprisonment. Whoa, that's a doozy.
What I like about DoodleBob is, despite him not speaking English, he still silently demonstrates so much personality when he's on screen. He is an agent of absolute chaos. And visually, I like how he feels slightly uncanny when he moves. Like, he's there, but less there than SpongeBob and Patrick. He's a character that makes me feel a mixture of emotions. Because he's unnerving, but also fascinating and kind of funny at the same time. And funnily enough, he feels very villainous, as he's a very real, ongoing threat. Even when SpongeBob wipes him out with the eraser, he leaves one single hand, which is enough for DoodleBob to rebuild himself and try to completely replace SpongeBob. And be careful, Spongy, he'll be back in 8 years. Next up, we have the Slinging Slasher. With his spatula hand, this fella became a fan favorite in one of the most memorable episodes in the series, Night Shift. So much fan creativity has been inspired by this villain. We've even gotten interpretations on DeviantArt of how people think the Slinging Slasher would look. I've even played fan-made SpongeBob horror games starring the Slinging Slasher, and it's still a funny reveal that this terrifying villain is actually just some guy wanting to put in his resume for the Night Shift. The mystery behind this villain is half the fun of it, and I think that's part of what inspires the creativity. We don't know what he looks like, so we just have to try and interpret and think it up ourselves. Who or what exactly is it behind that shadow? Well, that's for us to decide. And our next villain is the Tattletale Strangler. The Tattletale Strangler tells a real narrative in his one episode. There's such a build-up to him too, but we never actually see him cause any real harm. This character takes me aback every time, because strangling is such a disturbingly intimate, dark form of violence that I almost never see it in animation. Off the top of my head, apart from Bart and Homer of course, I can only think of it being shown twice. In one of the darkest episodes of BoJack Horseman, and in the anime End of Evangelion. And Homer strangled Bart until season 31, but it's kind of the exception. And Homer recently stated that he gave strangling up.
Strangling the boy has paid off. Just kidding, I don't do that anymore. Times have changed.
Anyway, despite the dark concept, it's among what I consider the funniest episodes in the series. They can skip around the censors because the threat of strangulation and SpongeBob's danger is all the writers really need. And whenever the dark threat does come up, it's immediately derailed by too many witnesses appearing randomly for a surprise party. And even the Strangler himself is so hilariously over-the-top hammy, often breaking out into evil laughter even while just planning to strangle SpongeBob. Plus, the whole strangling thing probably confused the censors because, well, Spongy doesn't have a neck. Is it even possible to strangle a sponge? Tattletale was a very funny and very memorable villain. The next villain is Victor. SpongeBob is a show that makes really funny, super butch characters. Similar to Blackjack SquarePants, Victor is the butch stereotype, so he's perfect for SpongeBob to face when he's having a crisis of being quote-unquote manly.
Somebody in here ain't a real man.
I like Victor because he feels legitimately intimidating to SpongeBob, but really funny at the same time, as does his Thug Tug gang at the bar, which apparently has Goofy Goober fans in it.
Goofy, Goofy, Goober, Goobers, yeah!
His appearance was short, but I'd love to see Victor appear again in future episodes. I hope he was alright after Dennis beat him up.
And finally, we can speak of Nosferatu,
aka Count Orlok. Is Nosferatu a villain? Just what is Nosferatu?
The master bids you welcome.
He's a real mystery. He first appeared in The Graveyard Shift, being played beyond the grave by Max Schreck.
Nosferatu!
Using archive footage from the 1922 movie Nosferatu, an unlicensed film adaptation of the 1897 book Dracula. In later episodes, he's played by Alexander Ward. Anyway, just from Nosferatu's villainous appearance, he inspires wonder and fear. Though he's very much still played in a fun, silly way in the show. And I love that even today, this show is keeping this wonderfully unique 100-year-old character alive. And I'll often start snickering as soon as I see him appear on the screen. I mean, who wouldn't trust a face like that? Our next villain is Carl, from the episode Selling Out. You might remember, Carl took over as manager when Krabs sold out his business. And I like Carl because he feels like one of the most real villains, like you'd see him in day-to-day life. And I have met Carl many times in the real world. He's just like some of those people you occasionally meet in a management position. Some will come into a management position and vow to change things around here, whether the old staff like it or not. For example, in Selling Out, the villainous Carl can make Squidward feel very threatened without ever actually yelling or being nasty to him. He passive-aggressively asserts control and politely uses indirect threats to keep Squidward in line, much like you might see with other large conglomerates that are expanding their business. At the same time though, he's just a guy doing his job. I don't hate him, I've hated people I've had to work with like him, but it's not really his fault. He's just a cog in a larger system that dehumanizes people for a more efficient business. Jeepers, how did I manage to say so much about a generic one-episode fish antagonist? Moving on. And finally, we come to the villain, Mr. Krabs. This one is a tough call because technically Mr. Krabs also keeps SpongeBob employed in the show, but he simultaneously keeps SpongeBob and Squidward in slave labor through the entire series. I may sound like I'm bagging out Krabs, but I think these factors are all part of what makes him an interesting villain. He's complex. Even if he doesn't always feel like the villain, there's rarely a moment in the show he's not doing something with an incentive to make money at the expense of others. With the only two exceptions being his daughter Pearl and his girlfriend Mrs. Puffs. They're basically the only two people he consistently shows kindness to, without the incentive of making money. And even when he shows some kindness to SpongeBob, it's generally to get him back on his feet working, or to avoid a fine for overworking him. At one point, he even sells SpongeBob for 62 cents to the Flying Dutchman. If you honestly don't think Mr. Krabs is a villain, at least acknowledge that happened. Despite all this, I always find myself waiting for Mr. Krabs to turn things around and show a redeeming quality, because he's a character I want to be able to like. But he's pretty irredeemable 95% of the time. In one episode he can be a caring father, but in another episode he can be endangering kids on dangerous playgrounds to try and empty their wallets. But even when he finally gets what he wants in an episode like Selling Out, that might just lead to a fascinating and relatable insight into Krabs when he gets bored. I may not technically like Mr. Krabs, but I don't think I'm meant to. He's a villain that shows the moral grays of capitalism. And in doing so, he makes the world of Bikini Bottom a more interesting place. And he's a constant reminder to viewers what only caring about money can do to a person, or crab. The next best villain is the Flying Dutchman.
You bet your lily white livers I'm the Flying Dutchman.
Definitely among the most frequent and well-known villains in the show. Despite him being a cosmically overpowered ghost, he doesn't tend to come off as particularly scary. Even in his design, he's colored with such bright and friendly greens, yet he still comes off as feeling ghostly. What's great about the Flying Dutchman is he can pretty seamlessly transition from a comedic foil in an episode like Ghost Host, someone who SpongeBob has to motivate off the couch, to this mysterious, all-powerful ghost who traps SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick on his ship for all eternity in Shanghai, sending Squidward into the bizarrely imaged Fly of Despair. Whenever he shows up uninvited, whether it be game or cartoon, I know the people of Bikini Bottom are in serious trouble. Yet again, I can never take him too seriously, because in another episode he might be complaining about having his dandruff stolen by Plankton.
Like in Shopping List.
The only time I can think of that I haven't liked the Flying Dutchman's appearance was in the game Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, because to me, he felt kinda out of character and awkward there. Apart from that, I've liked the Flying Dutchman's every appearance. He gives a ghostly excitement to every episode he's in. Our next villain is Squilliam. Rivals are just a fun trope as is, but Squilliam Fancyson is the perfect villainous over-the-top rival for Squidward. Even that full name, Squilliam Fancyson, it immediately tells us he's going to be a riot of puffed up self-importance.
I just wanted to watch you blow it.
In every episode he can manage, he'll weasel his way into outclassing and embarrassing Squidward, seemingly just for the kicks of it. I think a villain like this could be easily unlikable, but Squilliam is so overly pompous and hoity-toity that even his name, Fancyson, tells us we're not really meant to take him too seriously.
I brought some soap.
We know he's full of hot air and he's going to be a pain, and it makes it twice the fun when Squidward somehow pulls off the impossible and upstages him. In fact, some of the most memorable episodes in the series had Squilliam initiating them, because they push Squidward to his limit and it shows his full potential. Take Band Geeks, where Squilliam gets Squidward jealous of his band.
I've got to drum up a marching band fast.
So Squidward outdoes himself to blow Squilliam away, with all his friends playing Sweet Victory at the stadium. Or in Squilliam Returns, where Squilliam claims he has a 5-star restaurant. And with SpongeBob's help, Squidward ends up putting on a 5-star dining experience at the Krusty Krab. Yeah, it blows up in his face, but just look what he and SpongeBob accomplished. And I think that's the positive of a rival. We probably wouldn't have worked as hard to get to the Pokemon League if we didn't want to rub it in the face of our high and mighty rival. Sometimes rivals can push our heroes to work the absolute hardest to achieve amazing things. And even if it doesn't match their tower-owning fancy pants rivals, our heroes can still look back at what they achieved and say, hey, I did that. And our next villain is Cyclops. Personally, I love this villain. He's probably the most ferocious villain in the entire series, and this is technically the only villain to successfully kill SpongeBob.
Those fish are dead.
But later revived. Some bizarre theories even say SpongeBob permanently died there. Personally, I disagree, but regardless, Cyclops is very threatening. And every time he's on screen, we're overwhelmed by SpongeBob and Patrick's sense of insignificance and fear. The way he eclipses them and silently stares at them through his terrifying visage. The fact that he never says a word and just communicates through evil grunts. Even though he never says anything, we know he means business. It's legitimately pretty spooky seeing Cyclops drag SpongeBob and Patrick away, and easily the most serious part of the movie. Yet, it's also hilarious the way he raises his hands in triumph and laughs evilly as he captures them. Sorry, couldn't resist. I even love the way he hums a silly tune as he's putting googly eyes on one of the dead fish.
Alexander, clam now!
And I find myself in a combination of both laughter and fear for SpongeBob and Patrick whenever I see him. Fun fact though, Cyclops also voices Colonel Volgan, or the Burning Man, one of the most evil villains in the entire Metal Gear Solid series. Although I'd love to see Cyclops brought back, I believe SpongeBob and Patrick don't meet him till the end of the series, which is the first movie. And last, but certainly not least, we have Plankton. Plankton is such a good villain that he's not just a villain, he's Plankton. There's nothing about this paramecium that doesn't make me smile. He's simultaneously a monster and a joke. He might be a genius mastermind capable of very evil plans, but no one can take him seriously because he's also like a 1/4 foot tall, so he's frequently stepped on and squelched, rendering him pretty useless. The second he's about to seem even slightly dangerous, he's undermined by someone. I particularly like Karen and think she's the perfect co-owner of the Chum Bucket. Yet at the same time, I can't call her a villain because she's just about as likely to help SpongeBob. She's always looking out for the good health and well-being of Plankton, even if it destroys his plans, and I think that's part of what makes them a beautiful couple. There's always more layers to be unfurled with Plankton. He's insecure and struggles with not having anyone to enjoy his chum cooking. He and Krabs have a decades-long spanning history together in the restaurant business, and they were ex-classmates. He has a phobia of whales based on his family history. He's got a thing for robot women, generally building them himself. With any other character that would be weird, with Plankton it's just cute. And as much as I get tired of the shtick of him trying to take the secret formula, I can't deny there's been so many fresh, intricate, creative ways he's tried to do the same thing for years on end. It's just amazing. He might enter SpongeBob's brain to hear the formula, or his entire family line might storm the restaurant just to take the formula by force. His goal may be predictable, but how he'll do his goal is completely unpredictable. The fact that Plankton could just push through the same goal for 20 years and still be a delightful villain every time he shows up, that's a credit to his character, his marvelous voice actor, and his spectacular writing. I can comfortably call Plankton the best villain in SpongeBob. With those said, feel free to let me know how you would rank these villains. Would you rank any particular characters as better or worse? It's always nice to hear your opinion, so feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching and hope to see you again next time. Today's member question is from Jellian Licious. They ask, what's your favorite holiday? Easter's probably my favorite holiday because I love to see all the beautifully colored eggs. I just light up like a kid when I see the rows of Easter eggs in the grocery aisle. All the golds and pinks and silvers, it's just like a rainbow. Gojira asks, what kind of pet would you like if you got another? I had a parrot when I was a kid and I've always wanted another. The long-billed Corella is my absolute favorite, and just a beautiful animal to me. But unfortunately, a happy bird is also a noisy bird, and my brain doesn't like noise, so I can't see myself getting a parrot anytime soon. Thanks for the questions.